Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Mandy, and today I am doing the mid-year freakout tag. I am really excited. I've read 68 books so far this year, which is not so. Like, my goal was 60, so to be 8 over that, like, I'm pretty proud of myself. But also, it really is like such a great coping mechanism for me and such a great just pastime, and I'm really having a good time. So I am here to talk about the books and kind of give you a little bit of an idea of what I've been reading, how I've discovered myself and what my reading tastes are this year, and kind of where I want to look forward to for the rest of the year. I'm very excited about this, and it's so much fun to be part of this wider community and do something that everybody's kind of doing, and throw my stuff in and hopefully give people some great recommendations and maybe get some back. Yeah. The first question is the best book you've read so far this year in 2023. Okay. This is really hard for me because I have read so many good books, and May especially was a difficult, like, picking my favorite book of the month. I have yet to pick one because I struggled. However, and even now I am kind of like, oh, is this the right one? Here we go. So I'm going to stick with it, and I'm going to say The Cherry Robbers by Sarai Walker. I think because that one just hit me in a way that I can't explain. It's a dark, not dark. It is kind of dark, but it's a historical Gothic set in this house that is described as the wedding cake, and it's about sisters who are all dying as they're getting their cherry robbed when they get married. And so the one sister is recounting this story to a journalist because she is the last surviving sister. And you know this in the first chapter. So it's really her talking about what happened as they grew up. It's talking about women and they're getting their rights. And, you know, there's so many different things about it that it was just, it's one that's going to stick with me for a long time. And the main character is also an artist, and it was interesting how the author even talked about her influences with some very influential artists through the years. And it's one that I want to go back and reread. I didn't have it physically. I got it audio and Kindle from my library through the Libby app. And that's one that I definitely think I'm gonna pick up and maybe annotate. We'll see. I'm not sure because I am trying to cull down on buying physical books. It's very hard. It's very, very hard. I'm sure we all know. I'm sure. Yeah. Yeah. That one is the one that I would say is my favorite. And there's other ones too, and I could get into honorable mentions, but I'm gonna stick with that one for now. Number 2 is the best sequel you've read in 2023 so far. So I've read a few sequels. I read The Finley Donovan, and I loved that one. I really enjoyed that one. But I will have to say the best sequel is Lost in the Moment and Found by Seanan McGuire. This is the 8th in the Wayward Children series, and this one follows a girl that has a really, really troubled past with losing her dad in the first chapter. And then her stepdad is not so great either. And this one, she goes into a world where there are doors to other worlds. And this one, unlike some of the other ones, is darker, but they're just tiny little novellas. And I've almost collected them all. I think, you know, I read Narnia, was it last year or the year before, with a book club through a friend, and I had not read them as a child, but I loved the idea of Narnia as a world, but I didn't necessarily like the way that C.S. Lewis told some of the stories and like hit us over the head with certain things. And these ones I feel just do such a better job. I get lost in the characters. They're just amazing characters. And this one might be my favorite. It's very hard because I also really love Jack in the series, and she is not in this one. But I loved this book so much. And it's very hard because this one is one of my top books of the year. And yeah, so that would be this one, Sequel. Also the Moment I Found. Oh man, so the next question is new release that you haven't read yet that you want to, and I have a couple of them. First one, In the Lives of Puppets by TJ Klune. I am such a TJ Klune fan. Like I loved House in the Cerulean Sea. I loved Under the Whispering Door. They were such different books, and I didn't expect to love them both equally. So I'm very excited about this. I had this pre-ordered with every intention of reading it, but I was reading all these other books at the time that it came out. So it's been sitting on my shelf, and it just says, please read me, please read me. Also, I follow the artist on Instagram for the book cover. What's his name? It says, I will look it up, but he does these really cool claymation, like this is all clay and like 3D, and then he takes pictures of them, and TJ Klune is doing like the backlist of his books. Like I think the Wolf Song books are all being released with this guy's art, and it is so cool. I love his work. So on top of wanting to read this, I've been watching the artist, and I am obsessed with the artist's work. If I could get one of his puppets, I would. So there's like that on top of this. I want to read this so bad. Another one I want to read is Homecoming by Kate Morton. I don't know if this one actually came out this year or if it came out in 2020. It did. It came out in 2023. And I know this is something that has to do with fantasy true crime. I'm not sure. That's what it was kind of pitched as, historical true crime, something like that. I don't know. It's a chonker. It is like 600 pages, and I really want to read it. The cover got me. It is so beautiful, and historical true crime, like true crime-esque books, like that's not really true crime. Like those are like my bread and butter. So I still want to read this. I have yet to pull it open. I need to, what I probably will do is get it on audio and then listen and tandem read it, because it is so long. So that's with long books, that's what I usually do, is I will listen to the audio and read at the same time, and that helps kind of push it along, and I can do it while I'm cleaning and drawing and things like that. So then that one. And then the other one that I really want to read is Ink Blood Sister Scribe. Not sure what this one is about either. I saw sisters, witches, and I'm like, please give me some charmed vibes. Just give me the charmed vibes. I'm still looking, or like, I don't know. We'll see, because witch books have really been letting me down lately. So I'm just hoping one will actually be ready. So that's one I want to read. And I got that from Book of the Month for June. And in order to get the July Book of the Month, like I promised my husband, I have to read this by July or I don't get to pick a book. And it's been working, and I've been doing it. So yeah, hopefully I'll have it done in the next week and a half, but we'll see. I'm not sure, because I have so many books that I want to read. Don't we all have so many books we want to read? Yeah. Okay. Most anticipated releases for the second half of 2023. Oh my goodness. There are so many, and I am sure that there will be more, and I'm sure I'm going to miss some. But these ones are the ones that come to the top of my head. There is one coming out by Kate Alice Marshall, and I really love Kate Alice Marshall, so I will read her stuff. And I can't remember, I think it's called The Narrow. and I'll check that. But I want to read that, and I think that comes out in August or September. And then I know she has, that's her YA, and I know she has an adult coming out in January. So that's next year, but I still want to read it, so I'm really excited. The next one I want to read is Thornhedge by T. Kingfisher. T. Kingfisher has quickly become one of my favorite authors. I loved A House with Good Bones last month, and I was in a hangover for like a week after A House with Good Bones. I could not for the life of me pick up another book, and I literally DNF'd 6 books before I found one that I could actually read. And it was so hard. And I say this and I'm like, it's not my top book, but I loved it. It is in my top 10 for sure. It's just not, like, Cherry Robbers affected me emotionally more. This one affected me in the, like, it gave me Beetlejuice vibes, which is like a comfort thing for me, even though it had nothing to do with Beetlejuice. Like, it wasn't Beetlejuice at all, but it gave me those kind of Tim Burton vibes because I love Tim Burton. And so I cannot wait for Thornhedge. I love all the things that she comes out with. I think she's got a horror coming out too. Oh yes, she does. She has a horror sequel to What Moves the Dead, and I loved What Moves the Dead too. And that was a novella, and this one's a novella that is a sequel to that one. Just as excited. And so that one, definitely. This one, okay, so I am anticipating it, but I'm also going in apprehensively because it is Starling House by Alex E. Harrow. I did not like The Once and Future Witches. I did not like it at all. Like, there was nothing about that book I liked. Not a single thing. And I finished it and I was like, why did I keep going? I should have DNF'd this, and I didn't. So that's my fault. And I didn't like it, but I did love 10,000 Doors of January. That one was heartbreaking and beautiful and moving, and the characters were so interesting. So this one is apparently like a Gothic-esque novel, and Gothic novels are literally what I live and breathe. They're like often my favorite books. All the way back to The Castle of Otranto, the big original by our Horace Walpole. I love Gothic novels. So if it does it correctly, and not necessarily correctly, I could go into it, but if it gets the tropes right, and it does the tropes in an interesting new way and has something to say, I'm here for it. I'm just here. I'm here. I love the Gothic novel. Love it. Next question is biggest disappointment. Okay, I have a couple. Wayward by Amelia Hart. I DNF'd at like 50%, 40%, something around there. I didn't like any of the characters. I didn't like any of the story. It's supposed to be about 3 women who are in different parts of the history, and they're all related through like this magic, and they're all being mistreated by men, which, you know, yeah, I get. The cover is just beautiful and spooky, and it was witches, and it didn't do anything for me. So this one is going to a home that I hope somebody else will like, but I was so disappointed because it sounded so good, and it just didn't work for me, which is fine. But it was still disappointing. However, biggest disappointment, let's talk about my biggest disappointment, and that is 5 Survive by Holly Jackson. I have so many feels about this book, especially knowing that she was under a tight deadline and wrote this within like 5 or 6 weeks, and it shows. I loved A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. I loved the sequel. The third one I didn't like, but not because it wasn't well written, because I just didn't like where the characters went. It was a me thing, not a her thing. Like, I understood what she did, and she did it with finesse, and it was great. It just wasn't where I wanted the characters to go, and that happens sometimes in books. However, 5 Survive was so awful. It was almost as if somebody else wrote it. Maybe somebody did, or it was her first draft. That's how it felt. It was so convoluted. The characters were making poor choices. It made no sense. Even the what is it? The motivations in the book for why, like, I just, no, not mine, not my tea. It was not good. I wouldn't recommend it to anyone, especially if you love her first series. So maybe if it's your first Holly Jackson, but then if you hate that, then you're gonna think you're gonna hate how a Good Girl's Guide to Murder. I don't know. I just hope that her next book isn't as big of a disappointment. I, however, will not be pre-ordering it. I will wait until it comes out and see what other people say, because I feel like now she's gonna have to release a book every year, which means, are they gonna be as bad as this one? Because I won't read them then. So that was my biggest disappointment, because she can write so well, and she writes characters so beautifully, and I want more of Pip and Ravi, because apparently that's what she can write well. Biggest surprise, Out There by Kate Folk. This is a speculative short story collection. I love short stories. I don't read them enough, but I loved this one because it was so weird. There are so many weird stories, but how Kate Folk weaved them all together in the end was so good. This is very literary short stories that are also speculative elements, and I found them, I don't even know who else I could compare this to, because it's just so weird. And it had a lot to say about humans. It had a lot to say about illness. It had a lot to say about mental health. Chang Ray Lee, I don't know who that is, but must be an author. But it says, wondrously perverse, often creepy and hilarious, and always sneakily heartbreaking. That is like, if I can describe this book, that is that. I want to go back already and reread this. I even I have a little sticky note of all the short stories. The lowest short story in here, I gave a 3. And I think it was just because I wasn't that into it. And it was one of the like 10 short stories in here. Very good. I cannot recommend this enough. It is short. It is a short read. And the short stories, I think the longest one was 20 or 30 pages. So you can read this, in between things. But I loved reading. I read it within like a matter of a few days. And I loved being able to see how she weaved the stories together. So I think this was her debut too, if I remember correctly. Yes, Out There is her first book. So I can't wait. I will read another book by her. I will read another short story collection, or if she does a full-fledged novel. This one really surprised me how much I liked it. And it is still sticking with me even months later, because I read this in March. And so I think this one might be on my top list. Right now it is on my top list for the month, or for the year of 2023. But I still have half a year, so I don't know. Maybe I'll read something that's even better than this for a short story collection. But I'm not sure. That one was great. Favorite new author of the year. T. Kingfisher and Seanan McGuire. I have loved everything I have read by them. I cannot even imagine what life would be like now that I have T. Kingfisher, who, like, since A House with Good Bones, reminds me so much of Tim Burton. If Tim Burton wrote stories, I just love her so much. And I also love Seanan McGuire. Seanan McGuire did the Wayward Children series, but she also has multiple pen names, and I read Into the Drowning Deep by Mira Grant, which is Seanan McGuire's pen name for some of her horror novels. And Into the Drowning Deep was about mermaids, and it was dark, and it was creepy, and they were monsters, and I loved it. Both authors write in such a way that they have such a finesse of people with differences, and especially Seanan McGuire, but T. Kingfisher writes oddball, weird things. And so those two, like, if you like Seanan McGuire, I think you will like T. Kingfisher. If you like T. Kingfisher, I think you will like Seanan McGuire. That's kind of how I feel. I feel like they go together very well, and I'm very excited to read, is it Middle Game? I think that's what it's called, but I have the audiobook. I'm saving it for when I'm really down, because Amber Benson from Buffy, she is the narrator, and I cannot wait to sink my teeth into it and listen to Amber Benson for hours, because I adore her. I have followed her career. I've watched her movie Chance. Like, she did this thing with Albion, a weird web comic, web animation. I can't remember completely, but I've been following her, and I had no idea that she narrated audiobooks. And of course, she narrates Seanan McGuire. I'm there for it. I'm so excited. Newest fictional crush. This one's really hard, because I don't know if I'm really crushing on anyone, but I would say Jack from Seanan McGuire's Wayward Children series. I love her. She is so BA. Like, she will take anyone down, and she will stop at nothing, including, so many things. I don't want to spoil anything, but she will stop at nothing for the people that she loves. And she makes really hard choices, and I love her. So I love her. Newest favorite character. So that one's similar, but Samantha from A House with Good Bones by T. Kingfisher. I enjoyed her little asides. I enjoyed how she talked about things, and the way that she felt about the world. But I think I'm gonna go with real favorite character. I started reading The Vampire Knitting Club by Nancy Warren last year. The Vampire Knitting Club series is a Kindle Unlimited. The audiobook narrator is on Scribed, and she has such a good voice. Sarah Zimmerman, you are my favorite audiobook narrator at this point. I could listen to you read any book. She's so great at voices. But there is a character in it called Henri, and he is a fat, chunky peacock, and he has to be my favorite thing ever. There's also a vulture in A House with Good Bones, and he is a character, and so I think the animal characters win. I love a story where there's a good animal character. Also, I forgot his name in Fourth Wing. I have to mention this book because it's everywhere, but one of Violet's dragons. I'm in love with him. And so yeah. Man, book that made you cry. Okay, this one is very heavy, very hard. It is June, so it's a perfect time to talk about this book, and that is A Place for Us by Brandon J. Wolfe. And this one is still new, still stinging. I still have yet to process my feelings on this book, which is why I think this is the first time I am bringing it up. But Brandon J. Wolfe is a survivor of the Pulse nightclub shootings. This is an important book. This is a book that really was hard for me to read. And his story is so... I have no words, but this book is one that I think is so important, needs to be read, especially by people who hate and they're not going to read it. And it's so sad because this is his truth. This is so many people who are in the LGBTQ plus community. And it's so hard to see a world where there are so many people that are hateful and take these people's, like all of us people who are in the LGBTQ plus community, take the safe spaces, and it makes me really angry. And I cried a lot in this book. I had to put it down at times because it just broke me in a million pieces. And it's still breaking me because the stuff is so vividly still happening. And so, yeah, I want his voice. And so read this. That's all I can say is read this book because it is so important. Yeah. Most beautiful book you've bought so far this year. My most beautiful book. It's also one of my favorites, and that is Happy Place by Emily Henry. This is my favorite shade of pink. I literally have made so many outfits in this color. I've like 3 pairs of pants. I have shirts. I bought, when my friend Kimberly at Bow Button Fabric had a color like this in an athletic fabric, I literally bought like 20 yards. So I still have a whole bunch. And so when this book came out, I didn't care what it was. I was like, I'm buying it. I did it with Mr. Magic, and Mr. Magic, I got an ARC. It book doesn't come out until September, but it was garbage. And this was not. This was fantastic. This book hit me in all the feels because I've been through similar things to what these characters were, and I felt seen. This is a second chance romance, but it also has a found family through friends that are going through life's changes. They go back to this place where it's a little like, one of their family owns like a cabin out in Vermont, I think it was. And they are going there for one last time because they're selling this place, and they're all in different stages of life. And the main character and her partner have split up, but they split up and didn't have time to tell their friends because it was so hard for them. So they have to pretend that they're dating, and that they're still engaged even. And they have the biggest room, and it's just about the changes in your life in your early 30s, and how your relationships change, how your friendships change, how you could be doing everything that you love or think that you wanted, and everything in your life changes. And it hit so viscerally for me in so many ways. I had my dream job, and it wasn't what I wanted, and I thought I wanted it, and I wasn't sure. I had kids, and that changed my friendships so much. And I mean, there's nobody with kids in this, but it's just like their friendships are changing. They're all around the country, and things are different, and they're trying to get back to that old thing. And I viscerally remember a trip I took with my friends and my husband right after I had my first son. And I was like, I have a kid. That means nothing changes just because I have a kid. And I went on this trip, and I was in the midst of postpartum depression, had no idea. And it was horrible. I had to make some tough decisions in my brain about being a mom and what it really meant to be a mom, and how it meant that yes, you can still have these friendships and these relationships, but it is not the same. And so seeing that in the book was really, really touching, and I felt so seen, but I felt the characters on a deeper level. I hope I didn't give anything away spoilery. I might leave a little note before this one, but I don't think it was. Nothing was, just how I felt. And like, I didn't really give anything away to this book. This book is more than a romance. That's all I'm going to say. It is more than a romance. Emily Henry sealed the deal on being one of my favorite authors. And I guess I should have said that, but she wasn't new. So she's not a new favorite author. I loved her before, but this one was just even more so. Okay, so what books do you need to read by the end of the year? Everything, right? I don't know. It's so hard to decide that. What books do I need to read by the end of the year? I feel like I already shared those in the new releases I haven't read yet. Definitely want to read Homecoming by the end of the year. I keep looking at it and I need to do it. I also think I want to read a book called A Cosmology of Monsters by Sean Hamill. That one is a literary horror that I have heard is just profound. And that's one I want to read. What else do I want to read before the end of the year? The Blade Itself by Joe Abercrombie I have on my Kindle and it's sitting there. And there's just, I mean, I change it every week what I want to read by the end of the year. So there's just a lot. But yeah, so those are the 13 questions that I have. I have just loved sitting back and thinking about all the books that I've read over the last 6 months, especially since this is my first 6 months on YouTube. I mean, I started in February, but I had been planning, so I feel kind of like I started in January and kind of kept going from there. I am just so grateful for the few people that I've met so far and the relationships I've made. This has been such a fun opportunity for me. I am really proud of myself and how far I've come. And I know I'm still just a tiny, tiny, tiny little channel with maybe just like 10 views on my videos, but I appreciate you all so much. And I am looking forward to another great half of the year. And I'm excited to do like a whole year wrap up. I'm just excited. And it's kind of one of those things where, okay, you know, you're doing the thing. I'm doing the thing. And yeah, so anyway, that's everything for today. Thank you so much for being here. If you got it this far, drop me a purple heart emoji because it's my favorite, or tell me what your favorite book of the year has been so far. Or if you have a new favorite author, I'd love to know. I'd love to know. Yeah, so have a great day. Like, comment, subscribe. Have fun, enjoy life and books. Bye.